Hey everyone, welcome back to the Always Be Classy podcast. I have joined with me today a very, very special guest. Some might know him as Kripparrian. I know him as Octav. Welcome.
Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Yes.
Why don't you tell some of the viewers that might not be in the gaming community and tell them a little bit about you.
Oh boy. I guess we'll keep it brief because there's a lot to tell. We've been in this space for about a decade. So I started YouTube making video game content 10 years ago when you couldn't make any money off of it because it was fun. And then about 8 years ago, they changed the copyright rules on YouTube to where you could make some money off of it. And 8 years later, through a whole lot of hours, many videos, streaming on Twitch and getting our business off the ground, my wife Rania and I have basically made it to a point where we can relax and enjoy life, even though we haven't really done too much of that because we're still doing the business.
There you go. But you yourself as a streamer, you started many years before that, even before YouTube, even before Twitch. You started, I would say, not creating content, but honing your craft from junior high.
Computers and video games and all that stuff. I mean, I got a computer when I was 3 years old in Romania, like 1 year after communism fell. My dad brings a computer back from like his job. I'm playing like Lemmings or something, so, it goes back a bit further than that. But yeah, I just really love games. And I don't know, they're just, they're a special kind of entertainment that has kept me captivated for most of my life. Very literally most of my life.
Definitely. So being a gamer and focusing a lot of your attention in the gaming space, having to evolve from that and go into having to engage an audience, talk to other people, vendors, how did you make that transition?
So I guess it's a two-sided transition. So the first transition is you like playing video games. The second transition is you try to make content out of that. And a lot of that is a very interactive process where you try to entertain an audience through many different means that you can. So I guess that's the first part of that. And that came very naturally to me. I didn't really mind if people were like spying on me while I played video games. It quickly grew to something I actually enjoyed. Like for me, if I'm going to play a video game, I might as well stream it because it doesn't take anything away from me. Sure, sometimes you might have like a day where, the people watching might criticize what you're doing a little bit more than you'd like. But on other days, it kind of, or the moments, it counterbalances to a point where they add to your experience. So overall, for me, it's a net positive. And I guess I was pretty lucky to have that kind of personality because a lot of people certainly see this as work. But, it's not exactly work most of the time if you're built for it, I guess. The second part of that, with vendors and stuff and talking, basically making it into an actual business. I guess that's what we're here to talk about today. And I guess there's a lot to talk about there. The thing is, because we've been at this for like a decade, we kind of grew our platforms as the advertising industry grew on these platforms as well. So there was very little structure to it, I would say, and we've kind of had to learn as we go. For the most part, it's been the main focus of Rania, my wife. We're the two business partners who basically push this content out. I'm the face, and she makes sure that everything goes well, and she does a lot of the talking with the vendors directly to basically pick up that free money that shows up in our face, because a lot of the time that's what it is.
Definitely. Did you always, what were the first impressions that you had when working with vendors? Was it always Rania who was doing that, or did you do it at the beginning at first?
Well, it's been a collective effort. She is the one who is a lot better spoken, at least in text. Her being a former adjunct professor at a university in Athens, she taught computer science classes, and she's done many publications and articles and stuff. I think that has given her a lot of skills to be very specific about how to talk to people. As I mentioned, because this is an industry that kind of grew with us, when you meet a sponsor, maybe not so much lately, but many years ago, they would be like, okay, this is our goal. How can we make this work? And a lot of time their goal sucked. Like a lot of the time their goal is like, we want to do the dumbest shit possible, and actually we're going to get nowhere. So a lot of the time there was a lot of compromises, because on one hand we have to try to make sure they get some value out of a partnership, and at the second time we have to make sure that partnership is not one that hurts our brand or channel, or has less of an impact. Sometimes it's like, okay, we'll lose a few viewers doing this, but it's worth it, and some of the viewers would actually really appreciate to hear about this kind of stuff. So her skills have been invaluable in figuring this out, because there's a lot of moments where you have to say, no, this is not a good idea. And if you want to keep talking to these people that will pay you, you have to do that in a very specific way that doesn't piss them off.
Definitely. And it sounds like negotiation plays a really huge part in that vendor management and relations in there.
The truth is, negotiating on like price and stuff is, I don't know, maybe not our strong suit. We kind of know what the rates are. We are a bit flexible on like the compensation side of things, because if we're happy with a deal, if we're happy with a partner, we don't care if we make a little bit less. But if we make a little less, it means they're making a bit more. And if it was a good setup, it means they'll often come back, and usually they do. So the aspect of not being too aggressive with negotiating compensation has worked out for us pretty well to increase repeat business. But most of the negotiation happens on the deliverables. So what they actually are asking for a deal. Like someone might be like, okay, we want you to tweet 3 times a day for a month, and we got to be like, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. Like, let's say we do that, it's not going to go well for you, right? 3 days in, people are going to be like, another one of these. 1 weekend, people are literally going to tune out, and 2 weeks in, they're literally intentionally not going to use your product, right? So obviously that's a very extreme example, but the goal is to come to a point of compromise that makes sense for both parties.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's where you're bringing in your expertise into the mix and saying, let's take a step back. This isn't going to be the best outcome for yourself and for your brand. So let's try to figure out a way to make this the best possible relationship that's going to have a mutually beneficial outcome.
Yeah, that's the idea. I think it's not necessarily a philosophy that's adapted by too many people in our space. I think a lot of people just try to maximize the payday and have more of a focus on that. But we see that we have considerably more repeat business than others do. And look, if the business is like, pawn off like a credit card company or something like that, it's like, yeah, okay, we don't really want repeat business like that. But if the repeat business is like, play a game on stream that I actually like, we definitely want that repeat business. So yeah, it's it has always been, and it will probably always be, a case-by-case review on these partnerships.
Definitely. And you see this a lot in software sales as well, where companies are taking a look at their churn of their current existing customer base and seeing, some customers they do not want to renew because of maybe a grandfather agreement that they have going on, or the deliverables are not realistic. And you'll see them take that very similar approach when renewing their base year over year and attracting new clients and learning what type of vendors and customers are going to have ultimately the best outcome for them.
Okay. I have not sold any software personally.
That's okay. So what are some of the lessons that you learned while becoming a streamer to engage the audience on that side of things?
I guess you mean like the day-to-day, keeping the flow, keeping things entertaining.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tricky one. I think you see it a lot with newer content creators, where they have a very deliberate approach, like, this is what I'm going to do. You see it a lot, be more opinionated, be louder, get everyone's attention, be energetic, and all that kind of stuff. We haven't really done it that way. Maybe as luxury because we got in the business pretty early. It was always just a focus on the content, on the games that I was playing themselves. The experience that we shared with most of our viewers was mostly like a hangout experience. Most people that watch our content are like playing the games that we play, just kind of on the side. And we're kind of like their companion to playing. They learn a few things, they pick up a few things, they hang out, they get a different perspective on the game, and perspective is very important. So the format of streaming that we push out doesn't require a lot of setup. And because it's how I naturally approach these games, it doesn't require like a whole lot of effort. It doesn't require a whole lot of effort to be entertaining. You know, you crack a joke from time to time, but this is not something I try very hard to do. So in that sense, it's worked out, but it's difficult to really put that as a form of advice to other people who are looking to do this type of stuff because I guess that's not really the norm. The norm nowadays is, yeah, be loud and opinionated and all that.
Yeah, and we see that a lot on LinkedIn as well when there's a lot of new content creators coming each and every day on LinkedIn writing content for a variety of different topics. And the rule of thumb is just be yourself, be loud, be as honest and real as possible, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to read anything that is just stuffy business talk all day long. They want someone they can relate with. They want someone that they enjoy engaging with in a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's always going to be the case, right? It's just I think the audience on LinkedIn is probably a lot more professional than like video and post-based media platforms. Like the Twitch as a streaming platform has, I think, a slightly more mature audience than some of the other video platforms. But I'm sure a lot of people out there with kids know how many, crazed kids are demanding the iPad to watch YouTube videos. So, the audience on some of these other platforms are a lot younger. And what is going to tantalize a professional 35-year-old business person is not quite the same as what a junior is going to be interested in on YouTube.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
No?
Oftentimes, the most silly things get the most reviews and content and engagement on LinkedIn. Speaking from personal experience, there have been many, many times where on LinkedIn, the common trends is that you'll get approached by Bitcoin traders and scammers in general as business owners. Sometimes you'll get people who pitch legitimate products to you. That's a different story, but you'll get a lot of Bitcoin traders who simply want to sell you Bitcoin. And there have been times where I've just messed with them on LinkedIn. There was one time where I just quoted Monty Python and the Holy Grail quotes to them, and the guy did not watch it, and he had no idea what I was saying, and he was really, really upset. And I posted it on LinkedIn, and it got a ton of engagement because people were bonding over the fact that everyone hated getting reached out to by Bitcoin traders.
What is the typical sell? What are they trying to get out of selling you Bitcoins?
Get rich quick schemes. Invest in Bitcoin and you'll be a millionaire in a year.
Oh, damn, really?
Yeah, didn't
Take
you
my
know
money.
that? Seriously, right? It's pretty much it.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. And it always follows the same suit of comments. Hi, how are you? Where do you live? Do you want to make more money and diversify? And it's the exact same pitch each and every single time.
I wonder if it's bots then.
It's a possibility. It's a very, very good possibility that it's bots or people in foreign countries simply paying people to spam as many people as they possibly can.
Yep. Well, if they're still doing it, people are buying into it.
Someone's following. Someone's falling for it.
Someone's diving in.
Exactly. And so it's interesting what type of content people are attracted to. Do you ever find that you'll post a video that you say to yourself, I'm not sure if people are going to really react well to this or take an interest at all, and then it all of a sudden just blows up and starts a huge conversation?
Maybe not a conversation. I mean, most of the metrics we gauge we gauge are just viewership. Viewership is just the clearest, because it's okay. I guess it's difficult to gauge viewership if you're looking at other people's videos, because a lot of the time, like some of these videos might get like, and they might be pretty fail on like YouTube, but it might like get viral on like Reddit, right? So it might have like a lot of external traffic. And if you look at other people's videos, you're going to see a lot of things that make no sense. Also, view botting is pretty rampant on YouTube. So again, it's not going to make any sense. But if you look at your own content and you're using like a comparative measure, so like this video did better than that video, you know, so and so, you're able to get some pretty honest insight, because if something gets more views, there's a reason, right? You would think. The truth is that my certainty level on putting out content in terms of how good it is relatively mediocre to low. Like, if I feel this is going to be a really good video and I put it out, a lot of the time I'm going to be wrong. A lot of times actually doesn't do very well. And a lot of time I'd be like, okay, this video, I don't know if it's that good, but whatever. You know, the amount of content we push out, 2 videos a day, it's pretty difficult to backtrack. So if something is like, wow, this actually sucks, then we take it down, right? But if it's like, oh, I don't know if people like this, we'll see, whatever, maybe they will. And yeah, some of our best videos ever were like low confidence posts, and some of our worst videos ever in terms of metrics were high confidence posts. So yeah, I'm not that confident in saying that this is good or this is bad and knowing the expected turnout. It just doesn't really turn out that way. But yeah, using your own viewership metrics is a good way to try to understand that, at least. Because if like a video gets twice as many views as another, what does that mean, right? It means maybe someone watched it twice, maybe a number of people watched it twice, maybe they're sharing it with their friends. You also have to consider that on some of these websites, there's like search features. So like if one of your videos gets twice the views of another, maybe actually it was only 20% more engaging, but maybe because it was only 20% more engaging, YouTube picked up on that and pushed it more on the search engine, right? So there's some positive and negative feedback loops at work as well. And it's always a challenge to really make sense of it. But at the end of the day, you do your best and you try to be as regular as you can with content.
Definitely. Algorithms are fun.
No,
I don't know. Well,
not these ones.
That's very true. It's I'm not too familiar with YouTube algorithms. I'm very familiar with LinkedIn algorithms, and they make no sense at all whatsoever.
Yeah, the idea is, the philosophy, not that I agree with it, but the philosophy is that if an algorithm makes sense, it would be too gamed by the people at the top. So algorithms, at least on YouTube, largely intentionally don't make sense.
I can see how that works.
Yeah,
I can see how that works. A great example on LinkedIn is that if you share a post, LinkedIn intentionally downplays it because it's not user-created content.
What does sharing a post mean exactly? I'm not too familiar with LinkedIn, actually.
It's similar on Facebook, where you click share and it puts the post in like a small bubble on like under your profile, and then you can write a comment on it.
Okay.
So it links back to someone else's post.
Oh, I see.
And if you do that, LinkedIn will actively downplay that share so that the people on their profiles don't see it as much, because it's not content that's been created by that person, but merely copied from somebody else. Even though it gives the rights and everything and says, you know, this is from this person over here.
Well, I mean, I guess that sucks when you feel you have a really interesting take on something someone else has posted, which is a valuable part of conversation. But on the other hand, if you're owning the platform, you want some kind of incentives for people to create content rather than react to it. So I guess that's where they drew the line. And
exactly.
Sometimes that line is not drawn in the best place.
But I'm glad the conversation is steered towards views and the marketing side of things, because I see a lot of conversation around marketing and how to measure it, and what measurements are useful compared to what measurements are not that useful. And you alluded to it a little bit, saying that views are relative. Your views compared to somebody else's views because of bots and so on, it's relative. But what type of metrics do you really put a lot of weight in to indicate success?
Oh man, indicate success. I mean, I don't know.
For you personally, not general success, but a
I see.
successful campaign.
I don't know. With being like one of the big content creators for a specific game or genre, there's so many like websites and avenues that the content ends up in that it's really hard to just like sum it all up and be like, yeah, we did a good job with this, right? At the end of the day, it really is an approximation of how you feel you did. But at the end of the day, it's hard to really, do your best and then say it wasn't good enough. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. But I don't know. Personally, we just spend as much time as we can. We put our best effort. And if, next expansion, we're still at or near the top, then we figure we did a good job. It's otherwise very difficult to see exactly where you are in the popularity hierarchy of a media space. Yeah, I don't have a better answer. I'm sorry.
No, that's really enlightening with regards to that. It makes a lot of sense. If something is in a lot of different buckets, it's hard to measure one specific bucket if that's an indication of a successful campaign or not.
Yeah.
Whereas overall viewership or overall engagement being more indicative.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned it. I think if you're trying to grow a platform, measuring your own success with it itself day to day is the best way. You can't go and it's like, okay, this other guy is doing, twice the views as he was last week. It's really important to keep up with that because usually better content, more views, but not always. And what we've seen is in the last few years, there is more and more of a discrepancy between popularity and good content because people know how valuable it is to have a voice in social media and these type of platforms on the internet. So there's a lot more BS that goes into it. There's view botting, there's like crazy sharing, there's like, a lot of this stuff that really ruins it. Like we've seen content creators pick up on getting magical views and we're looking at their content and it's like, wow, this content's actually getting worse. And the people watching it, put that in quotes, actually going up. But at the same time, you have to keep paying attention to this because it's a way to stay competitive. It's a way to understand that, maybe there is a better way to present or have a different take on the content. You always have to be competitive with your content. You just can't take it absolutely just by the numbers of someone else. Other people's numbers are going to have influences that you're not aware of.
For sure. So after doing this for 8 years, how do you stay competitive?
That process.
that process specifically.
Yeah, I mean, literally, you have to pay attention to what people are doing. You have to do your best. You have to be committed. And I don't know, I guess in a way you have to find something that you can sustain. Not everyone can sit at the computer 14, 15 hours a day. But if it's something that you could do, try to capitalize on it.
Nice. Some people have kids, some people have doggos. And
some people with doggos have items delivered while they're on podcasts.
For sure. No, my kids aren't home today, so I don't have the normal wiggles and screaming in the background for myself, which is nice and not nice at the same time. But it's nice when you're doing video casts, which is great.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give someone that is forced to start selling when they haven't sold anything before. An entrepreneur that might come from an IT or a technical background that is now being thrust into a situation where they have to think of things in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I'm using my own experience, and maybe this experience reaches out of my own space, and maybe it doesn't, so take that with a grain of salt. But I feel like there's always a compromise between trying to achieve repeat business and trying to get the most out of today. And finding a compromise between those two paths is the most important thing. Like we often take things. I actually have a great example for this. So when it comes to hosting like a show, like casting something, or maybe we're going to be part of like presenting like a new expansion or something like that for Blizzard. A lot of the time we first work with a company, we don't charge them anything, nothing. And you know, sometimes these are things that we can charge, you know, $5,000, maybe more, maybe a lot more, depending on what the ask is. So you know, it's like money loss. You can actually lose money for today to get more money, get more business later on. And I think it's just really important to always be mindful of this, because losing today and gaining tomorrow, at least in my experience, is a pretty good way to do business. But that might be different in the space that I'm in, because there's only one Kripp out there. If you're making the same kind of sandwiches that all the other places around your area are making, then maybe making a buck today is more important than making a buck tomorrow.
For sure.
Yeah, a lot of these shows and stuff that we've done, we've just done them for free, like the first time. And a lot of time, because we do a good job and they see that our intention is not to extract as much cash as possible on these shows or events, it's actually just because we want to be part of it, and because they see that's the goal, we become more valuable, and we often permanently become part of the conversation when they need someone in these spots.
Well, that's the exact same approach that I recommend for entrepreneurs in the consulting space to take for any type of consulting, whether that is consulting for IT, for sales, for engineering, for marketing, for anything. The first conversation that you have with that person should not be about you. It should be about them, not what you're charging them, not trying to get an initial fee out of them, but just seeing how you can contribute to their organization with some type of review or some type of suggestion that they can take. Then if they wanted to engage into a project plan with you after the fact for a long-standing relationship, you can talk about it then. But the initial point to drive home is to provide as much value to that person as possible for them to get to know you as a business professional. It sounds like the way that you work with vendors, it's very much the same way. Developing those long-standing relationships, not trying to gouge them for money, not trying to get as much as you can out of them from the beginning, but creating those long-standing, fruitful relationships to take with you for years.
And I guess the underlining segment of this is, if that is your goal as a person or a company, I think some people are not necessarily trying to be in it for the long game. So I guess something to consider, because in my space, popularity is uncertain. And for someone who just had a very quick rise to popularity in the last few months, for them to have a perspective of developing a long-term relationship with the business client might not be the most appropriate, because, you know, 1 year later, they might not have any value to offer in terms of their presence on the internet. So, yeah,
The William
I guess there's
Hung
some
of
parallels
entertainers.
with that as well.
the William Hung of entertainers, I guess you could say. The guy that went on Canadian Idol or American Idol that sang "She Bangs."
Oh, yes.
He's not necessarily going to be an entertainer for a long term, but just someone who got a lot of fame very quickly and trying to get as much out of it as possible before he fades out.
Funny, I did not learn any lessons from his performance. There you go.
Yeah, I have to say that parallel is one that I haven't drawn before, but at least he's given something back to the community other than his entertaining take on She Bangs.
Well, there you go.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Always Be Classy show. It was a pleasure to have you and to learn a little bit more about the streamer's life and how you interact with your vendors and how you've approached your growth to fame. And is there anything that you'd like to say to the audience before we let you go?
Well, as always, stay classy.
Stay classy, everyone.
Thanks for having me. That was a good one.
Take care, everyone.